Where do you see today's enterprise businesses are on their journey of multilingual adoption for connecting, communicating, and even serving their customers in their chosen language?
According to me, enterprise today don't have language problem. They have a growth problem, and a language is the key they are missing. So at Devnagri, we are not here to play catch up with translation tools. We are here to redefine how global enterprise communicate, connect, and scale. So, enterprise have woken up to the fact that language is no longer a add-on. It's the core of customer experience. But adoption-wise, it's still patchy. So most of the enterprise are still stuck in a half-hearted mix of Google Translate plus human vendors. That's like driving a Ferrari on a dirt road, right?
Hi, Himanshu. Good to have you on our Multilingual Edge. This is our new podcast, as you know, and you are the co founder of Devnagri. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jaydip. Thank you for inviting me on the show.
Great. So glad to have you. Like I mentioned, Himanshu, I'm really curious to talk to you today about this whole multilingual tech space. Considering that you have started the company about little over 4 years now, and we will go back in the history after some time, but to begin with our conversation today, you may have seen in last 4 years quite a lot in terms of changing the landscape of multilingual translation, the rise of AI, and also as a company, the tech has developed quite a bit, right? And the fact that you have also worked with multiple companies, helping them embarking on this journey or helping them solve different use cases in this particular space, right? Now, the fact that today there is no disagreement on why translation is imperative for most companies and brands, especially in India, where it is such a language diverse country. Where do you see today's enterprise businesses are on their journey of multilingual adoption for connecting, communicating, and even serving their customers in their chosen language?
According to me, enterprise today don't have language problem. They have a growth problem, and a language is the key they are missing. So at Devnagri, we are not here to play catch up with translation tools. We are here to redefine how global enterprise communicate, connect, and scale. So enterprise have woken up to the fact that language is no longer a add-on. It's the core of customer experience. But adoption-wise, it's still patchy. So most of the enterprise are still stuck in a half-hearted mix of Google Translate plus human vendors. That's like driving a Ferrari on a dirt road, right? So what I see this forward, thinking companies in like BFSI, e-commerce, and D2C are already embedding multilingual deep tech and into their customers' journey, from onboarding flow to compliance document to marketing collaterals. But majority are still scratching the surface. At Devnagari, we believe that language will be soon as a non-negotiable thing as a payment gateway or a cloud hosting, right? So enterprise does not get this, will actually simply lose relevance in the current market scenario.
Okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. Now, when we think of translation, right, we see that usually, like for example, if I need to translate anything, I'll quickly go do a Google search, any tools that offers me that translation facility, I'll go and type something, and depending on from which language to the which language I'm translating, I'll use probably Devnagari's tool to do that translation, right? But that is really at a user level, at an end user level, at an individual level. Yeah. But enterprise level translation is completely a different ball game, right? Where a business is communicating with thousands of their customers, or maybe even hundreds of thousands of customers
Yeah.
at different language using different omni-channel and at a speed where a product is launched and immediately all language, and it's not just about speaking, right? The communications, the onboarding experience, everything is happening on this completely at an enterprise grade. Now, while we know that Google and Microsoft, these kind of translation services existed, and to me they are more like a commodity machine translation. What's the difference between enterprise grade multilingual technology versus some of this commodity tech?
So I give you an
I mean,
analogy.
translation tech.
So I give you an analogy on. I understood your question. I give you an analogy like, for example, commodity translation, as you mentioned, is like buying a fast food, right? Quick, cheap, and generic, right? Enterprise grade multilingual tech is having like a Michelin star chef who knows your taste, who knows your culture, who knows your health needs. So at Devnagri, our multilingual infra does not just translate, so it personalizes at scale. We plug in into the enterprise workflow and train on domain specific data of that particular business, respect the brand guidelines, and deliver across text, voice, chat, and video. So it's multimodal and integrated, plus secure because enterprise need privacy. So CIOs of enterprise does not want one API they could add, but they want a brain that sits inside their infra, right? That's what we are. And Google and Microsoft, if we talk about, are like good for tourists, right? So people want to go here and they want to understand. So it is good for them to use Google Translate because it's more generic. So we are here for enterprise. That's what we want to dominate globally on the culture aspect, on the scale aspect, on the integration aspect, or on the security of aspect of that particular enterprise.
Great. So I really like the example that you shared, which is the chef and the restaurant, and usually a fine dining kind of an experience where a lot of it is actually tailored based on your taste, based on your previous experiences, and knowing the customer well, right? Which of course means that the businesses need to know their customers, and they need a technology that can actually support that part, right? Which means they come trained completely in that domain and understand not just how to communicate with the customers, but also maybe the regulatory frameworks, maybe the
Yes.
domain understanding, and so on, right? Great. So, in last 4 years, take us back where you started and at what level the technology was at that time, and how do you see this last 4 years journey and where you are today?
So it has been a rocket ship. So before we start Devnagari, we were googling around and understanding that what translation is and why the translation Google Translate or Microsoft Translation does not work. And usually it was controlled more on human translation, which is slow and expensive. We thought, why not we make a specific kind of machine translation system which actually works for business. It's not a general translation, but specifically for businesses, and we focused on industry specific translation, and we build our own machine translation specifically to particular industries. Our customer base lies on BFSI, so we make BFSI centric machine translation models. It was actually better than normal clunky or literal translation, but it does also miss cultural nuances. With the advent of LLM, we saw the fluency and contextuality exploded at that point in time, right? So what we were able to do after the generative AI comes on, we put in on the layer of the top, we giving us domain specific and fine tuned multimodal experience to our customers, which then result into a more personalization at scale, where now we understand more context and we can work on text, voice, and speech together. So that is what we of the LLM comes in, and then what we thought that this is also very general because LLM also were trained on English languages, right? So it is not so specific to India. and Indian language content which they trained on it would be in minority, like every 0.002% or something like that. So we thought, why not we do enter into a small language model which is highly optimized and verticalized actually, and enterprise specific brain that outperform general LLM in context. So this is where Devnagri is laser focused and not building one size fit all kind of thing, but building a brain specific for industries and customers. So we have seen those kind of evolution where automation it's at personalization and at scale is what we are seeing right now.
Great. So what you are saying basically is that how did you make the journey from a relatively less personalized way of doing translation, because the pure machine translation doesn't give you those nuances, the small tone details and styles and so on, to where currently Devnagari is, which is highly specialized, trained on domain knowledge, trained on the intricacies or nuances of a specific business, so that the businesses can sort of lift and shift. So basically, just deploy the model in their infra layer, and that's where we sort of are able to sort of translate at a speed of machine translation, but at a personalization of a small language model, right?
Yeah.
That sounds really interesting. Yes.
So there was a few example which will make more sense to you if I'll give you how does it make difference. So for example, if I say may SIP will take care of interest, right? So if I translate it in Hindi and it will say कि SIP में आपकी रुचि आपका ख्याल रख may SIP will take care of interest, right? So but in actually business sense and in banking sense, that interest is not ruchi, but it's actually a interest rate, a byaj dar, which we are talking about. So language is so complex, right? So simple words and simple lines and simple meaning will change a context all differently, right? So
Yes.
that is what we bring onto the table, where we bring context to that particular industry and we understand what nuances it has, what can and can make difference in Hindi, right? So that those kind of nuances where people can build the trust on that particular brand and become their followers. So that's the language power is there, where so even in India, and I was reading the readership of the English newspaper is in India still is at 2%, right? So but people enjoy reading newspaper itself in their native languages.
That is true.
2% is too small to to read as English newspaper.
Right, right.
So all the traditional media like newspaper or movies, if you see, are in Hindi or are in Tamil or whatever language you want. They are there already exist. But the digital content when we talk about, right, the internet when we talk about, 99% of data on the internet is in English.
Yeah.
But we have 1 billion people who don't understand English. How they will access internet in their language? So that was the reason why we started Devnagari, to enable or make internet accessible to those people who don't understand
Right.
English, and they can make difference in their lives and as
Right,
well.
right. I think you made a very important point in terms of how the nuances can change, and you gave that example of interest rates. And it's just a statutory sentence sometimes, basically talks about, a certain percentage of interest rate is going to be levied on, for a certain purposes, those fine lines, the fine prints, right? Sometimes. And it's so easy to sort of get confused if you are not familiar with the financial terms and you are reading it in a language that you are not comfortable with, right? And perhaps that is one of the reasons it is all the more important in a domain like BFSI, which has money related. Money is at the center, and you are trading, exchanging information, not just information, but monetary instruments. I think that is very, very important. What are the emerging use cases that you're seeing, Himanshu, as a tech leader in these areas of specific business?
So, in banking and insurance are going heavy into multilingual customer experience. Think onboarding in 12 languages with real-time voice agents, which can help increase or solve your queries in multiple languages real time. So I was reading an article a few days back, and as our India economy is growing right? So they were saying that it will grow almost about 7% every year. The GDP of India will grow 7% a year, and soon we
Correct.
will become 10 trillion economy in next 5 years by 2030, right? So how our country will grow, right? So I made a thesis around it and then thought that if country have to grow 7%, bank as a bone of the GDP or other country, right, have to 14%,
Right.
right? Logically. And if they grow 14%, means how they will reach 14% growth? Means they need more customers.
Yes.
More customers means more people coming from tier 2, tier 3, tier 4,
Right.
which will not understand at all if you don't speak their language. And I thought our customer experience in their language would be a boom because they have to do it. Otherwise, our economy will not be able to grow. So there is a simple relation there. And one more tip, if you want to invest in banking, please do invest because it will go for sure for 14%. And and this is what we think, that why not we take that advantage and we do those kind of things for fintechs and BFSI. So they are using our language technology for the compliance, for KYC across drivers market. E-commerce also are using like personalizing catalogs and reviews, right? So one of the major factor why people view items online, they actually check reviews what they are,
That is
and if
true.
they are in English, and then that does not make sense to them at all.
Right. Yeah.
So every industry you talk about, healthcare you talk about, need accessibility and patient education. You talk about government, which have to adopt it for citizen services, right? So we worked one with one of the government customer, and we translated almost about 11 languages for them real time. So we have seen that 30% disbursement in their schemes grown up, and 30% means thousands of crores grown up because of the languages. So that's the huge impact which we see, and various use cases around voice, multimodal chatbots are not in the game anymore, but outdated. But voice agents we talk about in the local languages will be the fourth frontier, and I think Devnagri is one of the company who's leading this race.
Yeah, yeah. I think the true unlock is when we understand the customer journey that typically a bank has, whether it is an onboarding journey, whether it is a cross sell journey or a upsell journey, or even maybe a support journey. I think each of these use cases perhaps has a big unlock for language, because again, especially for I think the support part, when people sort of interact with you in their language, and they feel like they're heard better,
Yeah.
and they feel confident that they are understood better, and therefore they feel that this is probably a brand that I need to continue to stick on, because of their way of they at least understand me and I understand what they are actually saying.
There was a saying from Nelson Mandela. It's a very famous one that if you talk to a man in the language he understands, it goes to his head. But if you talk to a man in his language, it goes to his heart. So it is actually very true. So if businesses speaks the language which actually the user understand, it actually gives a customer loyalty where they understand that this is what it is, and this is what we need, and this company is doing that, and will help them getting their goals on language side. So both parties is win-win, right? So very less businesses which I have seen that every party is win-win, but if you are in a language business and you do it for your customers, every party is win-win.
Absolutely. This is a complete win win category, win win space. Now, I wanted to shift our discussion more towards the enterprise CIOs or CTOs who probably are dealing with an ever growing complex tech stack today.
Yeah.
And they are in constant worry in terms of what is going to be the security issue, what is going to be probably the privacy issue, where does this fit into in my overall tech stack. A lot of these, and even if you're a startup, they even worry is that you're going to be around for maybe next 2 years or 3 years or 5 years. How would you advise them to assess or even evaluate a fitment of language tech in their overall multilingual
So
stack?
I usually do go for lots of conferences and I really want to advocate how language can help them. So in those forums, I usually speak a lot bluntly to CTOs and CIOs that don't think of language as a tool. Think of it as an infrastructure layer.
Mm.
Now, how should evaluate on languages is like data privacy and security is the first point for a company dealing with customer data and stuff. So there should be no leakage to public LLMs and stuff. They should be evaluating on languages on the basis of personalization at scale, how they can get. So their brand voice, their terminologies, their non-generic English first bias, they should evaluate. And the enterprise are using their legacy systems, right? So the integration part plays a very big role where it should be something which can plug seamlessly into your CRMs, IVR, ERPs and support stack, right? And cloud infra. So these are the evaluation we should do. And even I tell them that why not you check with the omni-channel reach, whether it is voice, chat, docs, and unified communication altogether. And last point where we also tell them that roadmap is very important, right? So as you mentioned that 3 to 5 years roadmap and innovation, how it looks like. So they need to evaluate that how good team is and what new innovation they are bringing into the table and it is just building for the future or just packaging some API and doing that stuff. So if a provider cannot answer these questions, they're wasting time and they're actually wasting money. So enterprise need brains, not band-aids. That's what I want to
Yeah, yeah. No, very well said. I think enterprise don't need band-aids, they need brains, right? So great. And as an AI leader yourself, considering the space is evolving so fast, how do you see the language tech evolving in the future?
For me, future is clear as I given you the example of our growing GDP, right? So every enterprise will have a language brain inside their infra, not an API you call, but always on an intelligent layer that understand your customer, that understand your context, that understand your compliance, that understand your culture. So language tech will move from support function to growth functions. So not only supporting it, but growing the business. We see a world where enterprise don't even ask, should we localize? It's automatic, should be ingrained in their brains or in their businesses. So at Devnagri, we are not building a translation company itself. We are building the multilingual nervous system for global enterprises. So in next 5 years, if we talk about language will not be a barrier, it will be a competitive advantage. And we intend to be the largest enterprise player powering that shift.
That actually really sort of sums up our entire conversation in terms of, I think, you very rightly put that a language is not going to be a support layer, but it's going to be a growth function. And companies who are not prioritizing that in their infra layer, they will not get the scale, they will not be able to keep up with the competitive pressure, because we know that if India has to grow at 7% GDP,
Yeah.
and if the banks need to grow at 14%, they need to obviously expand their horizon.
Yeah.
And therefore, the tier 2 and the tier 3 cities and the regions, which is interiors part of our country, outside the metro that we live in, is going to be an imperative, an important part of their growth journey.
Yes.
Great.
So even I just few lines more which
Sure,
I
sure.
talk on my mind, and I just want to say that future will be belongs to those enterprise which speaks every customer language and not just literally, right? So culturally and contextually, that is the main thing. And at Devnagri, we are building the multilingual brain for the enterprise world. Our vision is very simple. If you want to be global, you have to be local first, right?
Yeah.
We can make that happen at scale.
Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. And I think it ties back to the Nelson Mandela quote that you earlier mentioned. When the companies or the brands speak your language, I
True,
think
true.
it goes through your heart, right? And that's why you win the customer loyalty, your brand acceptance, and obviously your growth. We are going to wrap up this conversation, but we'll continue to chat in our future episodes, going to deep dive more on specific use cases, specific personas or business cases, and so on. But for now, we'll wrap up. Thank you for your time today, and it was really good to have you on the show. And thanks for sharing your insights.
Thank you very much, Jadip, for inviting me, and hopefully I make some good part and I could give you some knowledge about my world, which is going around languages and stuff.
Absolutely.
Hopefully
Absolutely.
meet you again. Thank you.